Welcome, everybody, to another Zillow speaker series. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you to our guests for bringing treats here. Hopefully there are no sugar-induced sleep comas in the audience from the Cinnabons. Anyway, on a day when the maker of Hostess Cupcakes and Twinkies has filed for bankruptcy, I thought it would be fitting to talk about a much more enduring brand in the same sugary sweets category. And it happens to be founded and used to be run by a good friend of mine, and I'm very, very happy to bring to you the founder of Cinnabon, Greg Komen.
All right, thank you for having me, and thank you for the introduction, and thanks for making fun of our product, and I'm used to it, don't worry, happens all the time. That's one of the beautiful things about being part of Cinnabon. It is it's an incredible brand, but people have mixed emotions about it, right? They love the brand, but oftentimes they hate themselves for eating it. So we're gonna talk about that. I did this segment on Fast Food Mania that ran this summer. Why don't we play that? Give a little intro to the company. It does a better job than I will.
Ever since European immigrants brought the cinnamon roll to Philadelphia in the 18th century, the sweet, sticky buns have been a breakfast favorite. But it wasn't until 1985 that two American innovators recognized the hypnotic pastry's potential to break out as a standalone breakfast phenomenon. Greg Komen and his father Rich had one goal: create the world's greatest cinnamon roll. And as far as they were concerned, there was only one baker for the job: Geraldine Brousseau.
My dad knew Geraldine Brousseau and said, "Geraldine, I got a project for you."
Geraldine Brousseau was the owner of a successful bakery near Seattle at the time, but promptly left her own shop and hit the test kitchen, where she found her destiny. After months of tasting flavors and trying cinnamons and spices, she landed on the recipe for the Cinnabon. And the millions of Cinnabon fans around the world gave her a name: Cinnamon.
After tons of research, you've got your product down, you know you're onto something great. What was your first store like, and then how did you expand so fast?
Well, we opened the first bakery. There was such a strong reception to it. It really took us by surprise.
It sounds like a pretty good problem to have, though.
And it was.
Brousseau's interpretation of the cinnamon roll has earned passionate fans around the world. The gooey, pillowy texture and the sauce she developed, now a Cinnabon trademark, was unlike any other on the market.
Most people expected cinnamon rolls to be cooked throughout and on the dry side, and Cinnabon was nothing like that. The goo took months to develop.
You can't have enough goo.
But the thing that really set the Cinnabon apart from every roll that came before was the cinnamon itself. The Cinnamom spent months in the test kitchen, researching every variety under the sun until she found the perfect solution halfway across the planet.
Indonesian Kerinci cinnamon, which we branded as Makara Cinnabon, only available at Cinnabon, became the secret sauce. And it's a combination of volatile oils to the perfect combination to where we get that flavor that you get with the Cinnabon.
Cinnabon's immense popularity in malls inspired them to explore other opportunities, most ingeniously airports.
Became a really strong breakfast item through the airports because you got so many travelers in the morning.
Yeah, I know if I'm in an airport and I see a Cinnabon, bingo, there's breakfast.
There you go.
Today, there are 930 Cinnabon locations in more than 40 countries around the world, all mixing and rolling out the Cinnamom's original recipe.
Whenever I go to a Cinnabon, the roll is always hot. Now, either I have incredible timing or you're doing something right.
You don't have incredible timing. We serve them within 30 minutes out of the oven. So you're going to get a warm, gooey Cinnabon anytime you come.
That's the way to do it.
That is. Okay, how many people had a Cinnabon this morning that we brought here? How many did not? Be honest. Okay, those that are raising their hand that did not, how many really did, but you want to act like you didn't? Again, that's the conundrum with our product, you know? I've been watching people standing in our Cinnabon line, looking over their shoulders, seeing if their wives, seeing them sneak into that Cinnabon line, looking like they don't really want to be there, they don't want to be seen there. But but gosh, they love that product. And that's another joy of being part of the Cinnabon brand, is the fact that anytime you say, oh, you're with Cinnabon, oh, I love Cinnabon, or they'll tell you a little something about how they enjoy Cinnabon. We always get them at Christmas time. We always have them for whatever event. And it really is, it's a happy brand. People love their experience with Cinnabon. We started in 1985, and my dad doesn't get much mention on that piece there, but without him and his entrepreneurial spirit, there would be no Cinnabon. My dad has been an entrepreneur his whole life. He went to the University of Washington. He was a big football fan. 4 years out of school, he got tired of the concessions, of eating the hot dogs or whatever that was at Husky Stadium, and he thought he could do it better. So we did some research, and he found out the contract was coming up for bid, and the concession contract, and he put together a business plan, and by golly, he won the contract. All of a sudden, at age 27, he was a concessionaire, his first one being Husky Stadium. From there, he ended up turning that into a company called Volume Services. He had the Seattle Center Coliseum, which is Key Arena now at this time. He had the Kentucky Derby, Oakland Alameda County Stadium. That grew to be, he had about 15 contracts across the country. Well, while doing that, he also decided he wanted to get in the restaurant business, and he opened up a theme restaurant back in the day in 1969, Clinker Dagger Bickerstaff and Pets Public House. Anybody remember Clinker Daggers? There's a few people over there. There actually is one Clinker Daggers left in this world in Spokane, Washington. Yep, yeah, it does. And that and Horatio's. It was on Lake Union here forever. And so he had created Restaurants Unlimited and grew that company. And when the theme restaurant thing got old, he flipped to another restaurant concept, bistros. Cutter's Bay House was one of his first of the bistro concept. He had Morgan's Lake Place in Bellevue, Scott's Bar and Grill out on 250 in Aurora, which is still out there. And then when the bistro thing ran its course, he created Palomino and Palisade, some restaurant brands that are still enduring today. So he really, he's got an incredible palate. He's got an incredible sense of what people like and how they respond to food. And he, in 1985, there was a company called TJ Cinnamons in Kansas City, Montana, and they were selling hot out of the oven cinnamon rolls. And we talked to TJ Cinnamons about becoming a franchisee. And we talked about trying to get the whole West Coast, and they only wanted to give us the Northwest. And so the talks broke down, and we decided to do it ourselves. So I was working in the restaurants at the time, and then I had the opportunity to come aboard. Dad had hired Geraldine Brosseau. She had a bakery up in Edmonds called Brosseau's of Edmonds. And she was known for her incredible baked products and her cinnamon rolls. And so Dad had called her up and said, Geraldine, I've got a project. How would you like to come make the world's greatest cinnamon roll? And Geraldine, we have dubbed her Cinnamon, terrific lady. She and I worked in a test kitchen for months at the RUI headquarters in North Lake Union here. And she and I rolled thousands of different rolls. I like to say she was the brains and I was the brawn. I was rolling, just hundreds of different varieties and thousands of different choices of toppings and dough. We first had to work on the dough, the structure, the pillowy, light structure of that dough took months to develop. The cinnamon, the brown sugar filling, the frosting. It was quite a process, but we'd worked on it for months and got to a point where I thought the thing was really darn good. And we went into a product tasting. My dad came down, and I really thought we were getting there. And he took a bite of that cinnamon roll, chewed on it a bit, spit it out, and said, Geraldine, this is nowhere. And I went, good God, how could you say that? This is nowhere. But you know what? He just kept pushing. And the difference that was in the cinnamon itself, we had to get food scientists in, we had to get chemists. We were working with Crescent Foods and their spice division. And it was amazing what it took to get to this Indonesian Kerinci cinnamon. Cinnamon is the bark of a tree. That's what cinnamon comes from. And the Kerinci cinnamon is what was the difference maker. That, and then another thing at the time, Cinnabon is really gooey. Well, about September of 1985, Geraldine was pretty much done. We got into the roll to a point where we were almost there. There was still something missing, and I was still working in that test kitchen, and this time we're trying to pour goo over it to make it moister, trying to figure what is missing. And at the point, that time we had raisins in the cinnamon rolls. All Cinnabons had raisins to begin with. And I started, Geraldine, a classic baker, had gotten to our head. We had to pull it out at 190 degrees. It always had to be 190 degrees, 190 degrees. So she was emphatic about that. Well, once she was gone, back at off the project, I started pulling it out at 180 degrees. And it tastes, a little moister, a little better, then 170, and then finally 165. And I tell you, obviously the flavor profile of the ingredients, but taking that product out earlier and serving the roll at 165 was the difference maker between great and wow. And to this day, that is still where we serve the roll. So we don't cook to temperature or to time. We cook to temperature. Thanksgiving's just around the corner. I'll give you a big hint here. Same thing. How many people are going to go to a Thanksgiving dinner and grandma or your mom's going to overcook a turkey and you're going to need lots of gravy to make to be the party saver, to make it edible? Cook that thing to temperature, pull it out at about 160 degrees is perfect for a turkey, and I guarantee you, you're going to love it a lot more. In fact, my dad's so anal about cooking his turkey, he rips the breast apart, pulls it, and puts the rest of the turkey in there with the stuffing, because that takes longer to cook. And then an hour later, he puts the breast in, and of course, he's working his thermometer. But that's how fastidious he is with his food. And I'm not kidding. The guy's a little wacko in that respect, but he gets what he wants. So anyway, here we go. It's December now. We opened the first bakery December 2nd, 1985 in Federal Way, Washington. We tried to get into Bellevue Square. We wanted Bellevue Square to be our first store. Kemper Freeman looked at our business plan, said, cinnamon rolls, what else do you sell? We sell nothing. He goes, no, I won't do it. Forget it. You can't make it on just cinnamon rolls. Send us away. We kept searching. The SeaTac Mall down in Federal Way, Washington, it's now called the Federal Way Commons, was the only mall that would talk to us, so we opened a space in the SeaTac Mall. That first day, that first month, it went gangbusters. It just blew us away. When we looked at that first P&L in January, we were just in awe at how well the bakery did. So we started signing leases left and right. We opened bakery. Our second bakery was in Las Vegas, Nevada. We opened that bakery because the shopping center convention is there every single year. So we wanted the mall developers to be able to see the concept. So that was bakery number 2. Bakery 3 was in the Tri-Cities in Columbia Center in Kennewick, Washington. Number 4 was in Yakima. Number 5 was in the Cottingtown Mall down in Santa Rosa, California. 6 finally was Bellevue Square. Finally, Kemper Freeman had seen the sales of our first store and said, hey, maybe this will work. So we opened up in Bellevue Square. 7 was in Northgate. 8 was across over at the Kitsap Mall. And I know every one of these stores because I opened every one of these stores. And so we opened up real quickly. We signed a lot of leases because our thinking was, if we can do this well at the SeaTac Mall, we'll do well anywhere. So we signed leases left and right. And all of a sudden, once we had about 15 open, we had about a third of them were losers. And we're going, oh my God, what's wrong? They worked in the SeaTac Mall. How could it not work here? And we learned a valuable lesson about real estate. Something's all near and dear to your heart. And where you are, our location in the mall mattered greatly. Foot traffic was extremely necessary. See, we're one of those concepts that kind of suck off the traffic. The people need to be walking in front of us. It's not a destination location. Yeah, there's a few people who go out of their way to get Cinnabon, but let's face it, people really kind of want to avoid us. We have to be right. We have to get in your way, stick a sample in your face, because people are really trying to, put their blinders down and walk by us. So being able to intercept them was extremely important. So we learned a valuable lesson about location, and we set off to grow across the West Coast, and the Midwest was our first target at that point. We were growing only company-owned bakeries, but then we got a call from a guy down in Las Vegas. His name was Richard Newman. He said, I'd like to franchise, and I'd like to open up in Philadelphia. And we're saying, well, we're not going to the East Coast, and we're certainly not franchising. We're going to do all this company-owned. And he goes, but you're missing an opportunity. You got to get to the East Coast. If you don't, your competitor will. And once they're in the mall, you won't be able to do it. We said, we're not franchising. We're not going to do it. He goes, I'm going to come up to Seattle, and I want to meet with you. He goes, save your money. Do not come up to Seattle. We're not franchising. He goes, okay, how about this? If I come up and knock on your door, will you at least talk to me? I go, we won't be rude about it, but save your money. Well, 2 days later, all of a sudden, we get a knock on the door. Richard Newman comes walking in, sits down. An hour later, he walked out of there with a handshake to become our first franchisee in Philadelphia. And you know what? At that point, we changed our planning. We thought we only wanted to do this ourselves, but we did realize, he convinced us that we were going to miss out potentially on the East Coast. And all of a sudden, we decided we were going to start franchising on the East. And so we hired a franchise director. And when we ended up selling the company, the whole East Coast was franchised. And it was a terrific experience. Another kind of funny story, coffee. We've always sold coffee. And, back in the day, I don't know if many are familiar with Dunkin' Donuts, but Dunkin' Donuts sells more coffee than they do donuts. And this was true back in the 80s, too. They were known as the place for coffee in the East. And we'd look at that, and our coffee was only about 5% of sales. And we'd sit there and look at their sale and think, we've got to get a bigger chunk of the business in coffee. And at the time, Starbucks obviously was a bigger company than we were, but in the late 80s, we were in about 20 states at this time. Starbucks was they were in like less than a half dozen states. They had a lot more stores, but they were really only in California and Washington and a little in the Midwest. And we were working with a brand expert, Dwayne Knapp was his name, and talking about brand strategy and positioning and all those things you hear about. And we're talking about coffee. We went and met with Howard Behar down at Starbucks, and we had a proposal to put Starbucks in all of our bakeries. And we came back and we had a boardroom we sat in, and we kind of kicked this opportunity around. And Dwayne Knapp, I remember it like it was yesterday. He slammed his fist on the table and he goes, "Why do we want to make them famous? We are in way more states than they are. Let's do what you did with the cinnamon roll, and let's create a coffee brand and insert it into the Cinnabon." And we bit that hook and said, that's a great idea. So we worked real hard for 3 or 4 months, and we created Ruby Moon Coffee. Has anyone ever heard of Ruby Moon Coffee? Exactly. Nobody's heard of Ruby Moon Coffee. We had it in a few airports. We had it all throughout our bakeries, and you know what? Our coffee sales were still 5%. To this day, our coffee sales are still 5% of sales. We've had so many coffee. Every company that has got, every leader that's taken over takes the charge of trying to do more coffee, thinking Cinnabon can, but for some reason, it stays at 5% of sales. So anyway, we ended up selling the business to AFC in 1998. AFC at the time stood for America's Favorite Chicken. And they had Church's Fried Chicken and Popeye's Fried Chicken, and they bought Seattle's Best in Cinnabon. But what they had was a huge international presence. So their strategy was to put Cinnabon, Seattle's Best Coffee together, and take it to their international partners. And so here we were. We had 350 bakeries and we sold the company. Like I said, half franchise, half company owned. We were in Mexico and Canada. That's as international as we got. Well, within 4 years after we had opened up or sold the company, all of a sudden AFC had us across the world in 30 countries. And it's interesting today to see the Cinnabon sign. That's the Arabic version of Cinnabon. That's the Russian version of the Cinnabon sign. That's in Egypt. That's a new product. Some of the menu items are a little different. You thought we were indulgent? Look at that thing. Look at that thing. The food police would skewer us if we tried to do something like that here. And chocolate. Yeah. So that's kind of amusing. Especially that caramel one. Look at that dang thing. Really? I bet it's fabulous, though. Cinnabon, Libya. Anderson Cooper did a story on CNN. Cinnabon was the first post-Gaddafi American brand to open up. Isn't that amazing? It makes me just go, wow, look at that. That's in Libya. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I have nothing to do with the brand anymore as far as running the thing. I have some stores, some bakeries. I have 9 of them I've kept. I cherry-picked a few. And so I'm a franchisee. I'm the president of the Franchise Advisory Council. And AFC does like to keep me around, the new company that bought it. The thing that AFC did, they bought it from AFC. Focus Brands bought it from AFC about in 2005. And it was interesting. As I said, we were making all our money off the traditional bakeries, franchising and company owned. When Focus Brands sold it, they had created a whole nother slice of the pie, and that was the international. What Focus Brands has done, they have taken the leverage of the brand, and now they have found huge revenue in licensing the brand. So you go into grocery stores now, and it's rare to go into a grocery store, and I'm paying attention to it because obviously I'm looking for it, but there's at least a half dozen Cinnabon placements there, whether it's the Cinnabon bread, the Cinnabon cereal, the Pillsbury Grand cinnamon rolls. You got International Delight. They make more money off licensing than they make off the traditional bakeries. So this was a revenue source that didn't even exist back in in '98 when we sold the company. And to think now that that's a bigger source of revenue for them than what our traditional bakeries make up. And I don't know if you've seen the ads on TV, but it's rolled out a month ago in 7,000 Burger Kings across the country. So that gives us national advertising. All this gave us national advertising. International Delight ran a national ad last year. A lot of these consumer packaged good players like to do the freestanding inserts. So there's a lot of national advertising that went with it that the Cinnabon bakeries we could never afford. Cinnabon now is mainly its only franchise. And all the franchisees forever wanted some sort of national advertising, but you just can't afford it. The per unit volume of the bakeries just wouldn't support it. So consumer packaged goods has really taken the brand to a whole nother level as far as relevance, social media, what people talk about with Cinnabon. Marketers are always amazed when they come in to work with Cinnabon at how small the company is. You saw that slide before. There's less than 1,000 bakeries across the country. They're amazed at how big the brand is for how small the company is. They just can't believe a company with 950 units can have this kind of leverage with the consumer packaged good players. And it really does speak to the passion people have for the brand and how much it's loved across the world. Another thing that I get to do now as a founder is I get to go back and, you saw that TV clip earlier. This was on Fox and Friends. That's Steve Ducey. The Cinnabon turned 25 a few months back. And though I didn't see that as newsworthy, somehow that became newsworthy. And they flew me back to New York. Me and my wife, I had a bunch of stuff going on, so I said, you know what, I can't really do that. And then I said, well, but I've recently become an empty nester. So I said, if you'll let my wife and I go back there, and they said, Sol, go do it. And so we went back, had a nice free trip to New York, and then I went with Steve Ducey on Fox and Friends. And we spent the morning outside Fox Studios, made this makeshift bakery, rolled Cinnabons. And that's Steve and I on TV there rolling. I'm teaching him how to roll. And those are his rolls. They were kind of a mess, but we kind of fixed them. It all worked out there. But the highlight of my time in New York here was the UN General Sessions were going on at this time. So outside Fox Studios, as we were giving out the rolls, we noticed Tony Blair had gone in to get interviewed. Well, that morning we'd been giving his bodyguards cinnamon rolls the whole time, and when he came out, I had the opportunity. Isn't that a great picture? Yeah, that was the highlight of my trip to New York. I got to give Tony Blair a Cinnabon. And he took it and he got into his Suburban with it. I don't know what the heck he did with it. I'm sure he just threw it out the window. He's not going to eat, food from a guy who gives it to him on the street in New York. But I'd like to think that his bodyguard said, hey, I've been eating them all morning. They're just fine. Go ahead. It's fine. All right. So another aspect of the Cinnabon brand, people like to make fun of us, okay? And I got a couple clips here that, first of all, this first clip, they jump in real fast, but Konen's talking about McDonald's.
They're going to start posting, for the first time ever, the calorie count of their menu items. Yeah. Yeah, not to be outdone, Cinnabon announced they will start posting their death toll. Serious. Cinnabon, just, well?
No, just like McDonald's has, billions served. Millions dead!
Yeah. They're our sponsors? Oh, the producer says yes, they're sponsors of the show? Why would you let a joke like that go through? What the hell are you doing? What? That's cash out of our pockets! Cinnabon. You're the best.
Yeah. What we mean to say is they died happy.
Yeah.
Good save. Thank you.
We're back in the cash, Richter. Thank you.
I got another clip here I'm going to play in a second. The Cinnabon is always testing new stuff. One thing that is another given, every president that comes in to run the company is going to try and take the coffee sales up and going to spend a lot of money and effort on trying to get coffee. Another thing they're going to try and do is trying to get something that sells in Cinnabon that's not a cinnamon roll. We have tried for years and years and years so many different things. The Cinnabon Bakery Cafe has been tried. It was tried 20 years ago. It was tried 10 years ago. It's being tried again. And you know what? They've got a bakery back in Atlanta. They sell various things. One of the things is a pizza bon. They've got a Cinnabon with marinara and pepperoni and whatnot. It's actually fabulous. Art don't want anything. You take out the brown sugar cinnamon, put in the pizza stuff. It's fabulous, but no one will buy it. But regardless, they tweeted, they sent out whatever, the PR department sent out some stuff. You never know what the media is going to run with. Well, for some reason, the pizza bon grew legs out there, and this was Brian Williams talking about the pizza bon.
Further proof this week that America may indeed be the greatest country on earth. The folks at Cinnabon are expanding into pizza. It's an experimental new menu offering for now, but let's hope this one goes nationwide, as many of us believe the only problem with Cinnabon is its lack of pizza.
And then Komen jumped on it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this may be the biggest story yet. Cinnabon.
All right.
We've learned you've got to let me finish the sentence.
Yeah.
These
You
are
hooked
important.
them, now reel them in. Oh, yeah.
I got him with this one. Cinnabon's at work developing the new Cinnabon pizza. Isn't that amazing? Cinnabon pizza. Yes. We're also at work developing the new type 3 diabetes. I'm going to bump it up one. This. USA.
So I got to be part of starting all that, you know. That just goes with the territory, obviously. Tonight, it's a great night, a great day. I happen to be talking to you because tonight a big exposure for our brand is. It's going to be on Undercover Boss tonight. Cinnabon is. Kat Cole is our president. She does a fabulous job. She's been the president for about a year and a half. She was with Hooters for about 20 years, and she did wear the orange shorts. She originally started as a Hooters gal, but she's an incredibly talented lady, and she grew up in the Hooters organization, and now she's the president of Cinnabon. Like I said, doing an incredible job. They've got her undercover. I haven't seen it, but she talked about the whole process, and so that's going to be another great exposure for the brand. Looking forward to that. So. That's it on Cinnabon. You know, obviously, I didn't grow up thinking I'd be in the cinnamon roll business. I like to say, you know, I wanted to be either a, professional basketball player, a fireman, or a cinnamon roll roller, and here I am living my dream. But obviously, that's, nothing like that happened. Yeah, I would have loved to play professional basketball, but no one's going to pay me a nickel to play basketball. I'd love to be a professional golfer, but there's no way I'm going to ever make a dime except for maybe a few bets with my buddies off golf. But what I found was we got into doing something, we worked real hard, and good things came about it from it. And, I guess if I could leave you with one thing, you hear a lot, people talk about, find something you love and you never work another day in your life. But I think the bottom line with that is you got to find something. You got to work hard at whatever you're doing. Let's face it, we all got to go get jobs. And wherever we hired, whatever we end up being attracted to, just give it your best effort. Work hard, because when you work real hard, success comes your way. And when you're successful doing something, you become more passionate for it. And with that passion, you fall in love with doing it. And I just found, the harder you work, the more you love what you're doing. So keep the axe to the grindstone, and good things will happen. Thanks for having me out here. I expected that. I figured out, how come you're not 300 pounds? I think
that was my second question. Why are you in such good shape?
Yeah. There are 850 calories in a Cinnabon. But the mini bon you ate today had less than 300 calories.
That's not so
bad. Well, there you go. The mini, that was the small one. That was the small version. But I don't know what that caramel thing had. But that's why Cinnabon was promoting the mini bon, is because they really have a strategy. They want to shout to the fact that we have something other than the 850 calorie behemoth that most people recognize. In fact, most times you see Cinnabon mentioned like Men's Health, eat this, not that. They usually talk about the caramel pecan sticky bun, which for us, it's over 1,000 calories. In fact, I've been telling them for years, get that thing off our menu. The caramel pecan has to stay, but only serve it in the mini form, because that would have, probably about 500 calories. But if you made the worst thing we had on our menu, the classic Cinnabon at 850, at least it's under 1,000 calories. At least Men's Health wouldn't grab onto something where everybody's saying, oh God, the Cinnabon's got to be over 1,000 calories. $1.25, $1.25 was what we sold it for. Now it's about $3.50, depending where you go. But it was $1.25, and all we had was a Cinnabon. And then we had, we had milk, we had coffee, and we had one size of soda. That was it, real simple. Oh, and I said it had raisins. It took me about 3 weeks of people coming up and being, are there raisins in that? And saying, yes, they are. And either you got, oh, good, I love raisins. Or they walk away saying, I hate raisins. And what I learned was the raisin lovers obviously wanted raisins, but the raisin haters wouldn't buy the thing if it had raisins in it. But the raisin lovers prefer raisins in there, but they certainly would still buy it if it didn't have it in there. So I pulled that, I pulled the out. In fact, my dad didn't even know about that. All of a sudden, this guy had come up and was talking to me about it, and he was somehow, the thing of raisins came up, and he said, well, yeah, we have raisins in this. And he goes, no, there's no raisins. I bought a bunch. Look, and there's no, he calls me up, great, there's no raisins in this cinnamon roll. I go, oh, yeah, I took those out about 3 weeks ago. What the hell? Yeah, here we go. Now I'm in trouble. You know what? We have been trying to figure out how we adapt to the healthy world for so many years, because it really has flown against all the current trends, right? Things are getting smaller, and people are wanting to eat healthier as people are more concerned about their health and what they're eating. Cinnabon, let's face it, we're starting to get our butts kicked by the pretzel guy because it's perceived as more healthy, which really, Annie Ann, Cinnabon, they're not much difference in calories, but people perceive it to be less in calories. And it's interesting because our average unit volume used to be about 100 grand a year more than Annie Ann's. Today, that's almost flipped. And health is a big reason why. So yes, we have attempted. We came out with, it was back in the 90s. Mini Bon Delight was the name. And it had 1/3 the fat and calories of a regular mini bon. And so we rolled that out countrywide. No one bought it. No one bought it. They'd come and they kept saying they wanted it, but when they got to that cash register, they didn't buy it. It wouldn't sell. So we just keep getting hit with that question, and you know what? They keep trying, but so far it hasn't sold. So the answer for them now has been to come out and really focus on the smaller version and to go with the more mini-size portions and to try and reduce the fat and calories that way. We've been accused of that a lot. Rich, we have.
Defend yourself.
Well, here, first, We spent a lot of money on HVAC systems, right? And then as operators, we'd run around to all, because the malls make us put these things in. As operators, we'd go into these stores and make darn sure every one of them were turned off, right? Well, that we got by for about half a dozen years doing that. Well, the mall managers started to get keen to our little game. And how we would tell, we'd light a match at our at the lease line, and if the match blew out that way, you know, obviously it was bad. That means the thing was on and that everything was sucking. If it blew out that way, when we blew it out, if the smoke went that way, we knew we were doing the right thing. Well, they got wise to that, and they'd go up on the roof and started checking and to feel if the air was coming out. In fact, they finally got so tired of going up and checking, you know, having to walk all the way up there. What they did is then they'd put ribbons on our HVAC system. They could just peek up and see if the ribbons were blowing up on the roof. Then they'd come down and yell at us. So then they started fining us and all that. So you know what? We always want to have the balance such that it's blowing out, but the malls have gotten pretty keen to that because the you know, the majors, the Nordstroms of the world, they don't want their clothes to smell like cinnamon rolls. They get angry if we're next to them, and yeah, so that's why. We were in the test kitchen of Restaurants Unlimited, and you know, by then he had a pretty big restaurant company, so it was anyone that happened to be around. And you know, in the very beginning, a lot of people would come around to taste, and then after a while, you know, people start going, "Would you quit doing this to us?" You know, holy cow! I think everybody in that office claims they gained 10 pounds during that 3-month period, but it was the group at Restaurants Unlimited. Is a two-sided corner location better than being in line? It's a great observation. It's very, very true. SeaTac Mall, I talk about being a great location. It was on the throat of a food court, and we had 3 sides. We literally were on the point, main center of the mall, at the throat of the food court, and we had this side over here, along here, and down this way. So we stuck out, and we had the visual from all 3 sides. But yes, the more we can bump out, again, the more we're able to get inside of the traffic. And if you can get to two-sided location, you're obviously in a place where more traffic's coming around you. The further in line you get, we try not to be buried in a food court, you know, because people are really going to food courts for meals. So we'll be at the throat of a food court because people coming in and out are more likely to grab a snack. But we don't want to be embedded deeper in a food court. And any time we can get a two-sided location, it's much better than just being a regular in-line. I got a great story for that. The question is about the locations in grocery stores, and we used to be in QFC around this area. That's a great point. I haven't forgot about it, but it wasn't a great experiment for us. But what happened was, this was back when Starbucks was growing like a weed, and we thought that Cinnabon had the opportunity to become thousands of units instead of hundreds. And grocery stores were an opportunity, and we started to get into and seeing grocery stores as a big opportunity. We got into Walmarts, we got into QFCs, and we'd open up in a grocery store, and we'd start out with big volume. And then about a month later, all of a sudden the thing had crashed. And we're going, what's going on? We do traffic counts, kind of like we do malls, and you know, there's a lot of people coming in and out of the grocery stores. But what we found was, in grocery stores, it's the same people every week coming in. You know, sometimes, you know, someone would go to a grocery store sometimes 2 and 3 times a week, but it's always the same faces. And they'll go in and they'll grab Cinnabons, and the next time they're in, they'll grab a Cinnabon, they'll grab a pack of Cinnabons, take them home, and then all of a sudden, by the 4th or 5th visit, they're going, I got to quit doing this to my family. I can't keep taking cinnamon rolls home. I'm getting tired of these things. And it was the same thing with office buildings in downtown locations. We'd go down, we were in Embarcadero Center, was bakery number 14 in San Francisco. And we had a bakery down there, and again, the foot traffic was incredible. So we opened up there, and again, it's the same people coming into every single day. The thing about malls is you've got the same type of traffic, but you know what? The average frequency in a mall for the female is once a month. For the male, it's every 3 months. And so you need that different traffic, the different faces coming through, because Cinnabon is notorious for product fatigue. Coffee, obviously, is something not only you want every day, you need it every day. Cinnabon, You don't need it every day. You don't want it every day. You love it to begin with, but the product fatigue sets in, and we pulled the plug on grocery stores. So our dreams of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 shrunk real quickly. That's exactly what it is. What are you when you're going to an airport? You're either going on vacation, you got a different mentality, woohoo, or you're on a business trip and you're just going, God dang, I'm on a business trip. I deserve this, gosh darn it. People drink more, they eat crappy food when they're doing that. You know where else we do really well? You know, the Mall of America is a store I still own. It's the busiest Cinnabon in the entire country, and it's because it's more the fair mentality. You know, fair food, you go to the Puyallup Fair, you see what people eat down there? It's amazing. And Mall of America is kind of like that. You get that fair food mentality, and it does 4 times what regular Cinnabon does. That is a great, great question. Isn't that beautiful? We don't have a major competitor out there. Obviously, you can say everybody's a competitor. Anybody after that $5 indulgence, you know, Starbucks is a major competitor. The pretzel guy's a competitor. And, you know, when we first got into this, you know, the pretzel person didn't exist. You know, Starbucks wasn't in any malls. So the competition's gotten a lot better. But no one's been able to do what Cinnabon does. And that's, you know, it's almost befuddling because, you know, being the country we're in, copycats, heck, we were a copycat. We stole the idea from TJ Cinnabon's. And here we are. Not only is Cinnabon standing alone, but it's pretty much synonymous, like the Kleenex, Cinnabon, you know, with cinnamon rolls. And, you know, the only thing that I can get to is it's not easy. It seems pretty easy. All we do is one thing and do it really well. But you're getting that Cinnabon within a half hour of coming out of the oven, right? I talked about that on that first piece you saw. Any Cinnabon you go to, if you take a Cinnabon off the hot plate, it's come out of that oven within a half an hour. Nobody sells baked goods unless you happen to get really lucky with something that fresh. In fact, TJ Cinnabon's died a slow death because they started going to a 1-hour hold time, a 2-hour hold time, microwaving them, and it wasn't long before they disappeared. They were always the leader in their category, and they got up to about, I think they were at probably, you know, like 250, 300 stores or something like that, and then they ended up dying off. But yeah, it's pretty amazing. In the beginning, we threw it all away, and it took about 7, 8, 9 months till we realized, you know what, there's got to be a better use for this than just keep dumping that stuff down the garbage. And what we did was, our product, we have these things now, express packs we call them, and they're the boxes of rolls you get to take home with you. What happens if you come and buy 12 hot rolls off our hot plate, put them in a box and take them home, by the time it gets home, all the steam has been sitting there in it, and that pastry now has gotten real kind of moist, and then overnight it's going to get hard, and it isn't as good. By cooling it down, letting it sit out and letting it get down to room temperature on its own before you seal it and cover it, it's actually a much better product when you take it home. So now what we do, we discount those rolls, they become our express packs, and they have another 24-hour life to sell. And those are the rolls that you can take them home, and they're terrific 3-4 days later, but they freeze well too. You put them in your freezer and pull them out a couple weeks later, a month later, and they're still fabulous.
Greg, I'll never look at a Cinnabon the same way again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Love it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you all.